Hello, all you wonderful Rise of Kingdoms players out there. This is Dragothien here, and today we're going to continue the Commander Guides here, the Mastery Guides for our Commander Mastery Series 2.0. That means that we're going to be updating not only how good they are when you start, but also in the Season of Conquest and late game activities like Osiris League, Champions of Olympia, all those good things. So what we're going to do here is we're going to break down, as we always do, El Cid's skills. We're going to break down his commander pairings. We're going to break down his talent builds. And then finally, we're going to give a summary on how you should use El Cid based on how old your account is or the kingdom that you're in, whether you're a brand new account or whether you're a late game in Season of Conquest and you're enjoying all those great, fun, exciting things that are happening in Rise of Kingdoms with all the latest events and everything like that. So first off, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about his first skill, Famous Warrior, 1000 rage requirement, so normal rage requirement, nothing fancy here. Then we're going to talk about all the rest of the skills here. So first skill, Famous Warrior, deals direct damage to one target for 1000 damage factor and disables its active skill and normal attacks for only 1 second. So there's different variations of crowd control in Rise of Kingdoms. So let me explain what this is. There's silence, which is a lot more frequently seen. You've got commanders like Guan, you've got commanders like Herman, you've got commanders like even Artemisia silencing herself. I mean, stuff like that, right? Silence only affects the active skill itself. It stops the progression of the active skill, okay? Disables everything. So it turns off active skills and normal attacks. The only problem is it's only for 1 second for El Cid. So while this is a devastating crowd control ability, basically eliminating all damage from a commander, it has to be timed just right to make it worthwhile on that first turn. Because if you're way too fast generating rage versus maybe a commander pairing you're going up against that uses defense or the attack skill tree or talent tree, or even the support tree where it generates rage faster after that first set of skills, but maybe not necessarily as fast as, say, the skill talent tree does, you may be firing off and disabling the normal attack, which is nice, but the big damage you're going to get is from the attack skill or the active skill. And if you don't time it right, which is very difficult to do, let's be honest, that part of the disable is basically worthless, because if it's not during that 1 second, it's just going to delay the 1 second, and then they're going to start really kind of firing it up. They're going to revving that engine up. So it does disable it for 1 second. It's very nice, but it's only for 1 second. It basically it adds an extra turn. An extra turn to each skill cycle, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Now, second skill, Poem of El Cid. This kind of helps bring in some more damage, because as we saw in the first skill, it's only 1000 damage factor, and for a legendary commander, that's actually not very good. Again, the main thing, I guess, you're trying to trade off a little bit of damage for that amazing disable ability, but it's only for 1 second. I'm not sure if that extra 500 damage factor would have been nicer, but look, the second skill here, attacks of troops led by this commander have a 10% chance to deal extra damage to the target. So 10% chance abilities generally fire once every skill cycle on average. Sometimes they'll fire twice, sometimes they'll fire once every 15 turns, something like that. A turn generally equals 1 second. So El Cid will generally fire off his skills every 9 or 10 seconds depending on your talent build. And with that being said, firing off an extra 1000 every 9 or 10 turns, combining it with a guaranteed 1000, that makes El Cid basically a 2000 damage factor commander, which is really good, especially for a legendary. I mean, most other legendaries don't have that number to their name. However, again, this second skill is a chance. So it's a boom or bust kind of thing. It's not guaranteed, but more often than not, you'll get that once every 9-10 seconds or so. Third skill, Guardian of Valencia. Archer units led by this commander gain 20% increased defense, which is very nice, and 15% increased march speed, which is also very nice. I like this third skill because it helps reinforce. So not only does the defense help if you're in a situation where you don't own the open field, the defense helps you take less damage as you're moving across the battlefield. The march speed obviously will help you get to where you're going faster. And if you're trying to reinforce a rally, or if you're trying to reinforce a garrison, or whatever, right? That will help you. If you don't own the open field, you'll take less damage as people are trying to hit you on the way, right? But then also, again, just in general, you want to be able to get to where you're going faster on the battlefield. So if you're using, say, an Elcid YSG, or an Elcid Artemisia, or an Elcid Tamiris, or whatever, right? Whatever you're using, Elcid Herman, right? You want to be able to get to where you're going faster. And if you need to disengage from the battle, you can do so. So you can pull back and have a little bit of speed to you, unless you're attacking calves, and then you probably shouldn't be attacking calves in the first place. And we start to kind of get into it, right? That's kind of how it works. So with that being said, I think that ultimately you're talking about a skill that's helpful. I mean, overall, it's very helpful. But again, it's kind of just okay. Because as you see in some of the later Archer commanders, those numbers, especially the defense number, is doubled. It's not 20, it's 40. And that's kind of the realm that we're in, and that's where we'll get into the summary page of this mastery guide at the end. Let's talk about the fourth skill, though, Unyielding. Now, this is a skill that is available in our current Heroic Anthem KVK in 916, and this skill is devastating. And this used to be the bane of KVK2 existences before all these new commanders came out, and even until it's Takeda, before until it's Takeda came out. El Cid used to be, because of this skill alone, so devastating. And of course, we have it in our bastion, as a bastion on one of our in our map. So when troops led by this commander have 50% or less of their units, so when your troops are half health, they gain 25% increased all damage bonus, and 25% increased march speed until the troops are disbanded. Now, obviously, on the open field, this is a skill to try and help you get away faster and not take so much dead or severely wounded or whatever your hospital capacity looks like. But in a rally and a garrison situation, this skill transforms into basically an increased 25% damage if you stock the rally and garrison correctly with troops. So if you're putting up maximum numbers inside of the rally and garrison, you're not really going to see the maximum effect of this. But if you have people reinforcing with, say, 100,000 marches, and they are going to 50% very quickly, 50,000 troops, this really starts to shine. And the damage that you're putting out, even though you're not half health, you are half health in the eyes of this skill, and you start to pump out 25% damage with maximum reinforcements. So this is a thing, guys. This is a deal. So this is a huge deal for this commander. This is what makes El Cid at least usable in the late game, because otherwise you're really just using him for the disable. I mean, let's be honest, right? So expertise, probably one of the most lackluster expertises I've ever seen in my entire life. Out of control. Archer units led by this commander gain 5% increased attack, 5% increased defense, and deal 2% increased damage to infantry units. This is basically a civilization buff. If you think about it. It's a civilization buff, and not even that. The expertise is a very minimal thing. It doesn't really help you that much. It's nice to have the extra damage to infantry units, but it's not noticeable. The 5% increased defense and attack, you can get that on a green piece of equipment. So expertise is very lackluster. So those are the skills. And let's kind of go into the talent build next. That's usually what we like to do on the mastery guides. We like to go into the talent builds, and we like to kind of see what we like to do for El Cid. And let me go ahead and bring it up. There we go. So, bringing this up, open field and rally build. I like to go full archer tree on El Cid. I like the extra damage that it provides. And I do like Feral Nature. I do miss it on this build. However, for late game archer builds, this is kind of the build to go with now. You can do a little bit less of the... in fact, I would take this latent power off a little bit and maybe put it towards the attack or the rage. But honestly, it's not too bad to have, especially if you have an additional damage factor commander, like say a Ramses behind El Cid would be great to have the latent power talent on top of all the other skill damage bonuses that you provide. In fact, El Cid Ramses is actually a really good pair, especially with this build. You can really start to pump out some significant damage with how much Ramses ramps up El Cid and makes El Cid kind of really viable from a primary standpoint. But this is the build. This is the only build that I use with El Cid. Versatility tree is absolute hot garbage. You get nothing from it. You have to go through a bunch of gathering and peacekeeping stuff to get and garrison watchtower stuff to get to anything halfway decent, and even then it's just not good. So there's really only two types of builds for El Cid. We're talking full skill tree, getting feral nature, but then you give up the arrows and the final talent at the top of the archer tree, which to me is way more valuable than possibly getting the extra 100 rage. That can proc twice or three times in one skill cycle. It can proc once in 3 skill cycles. You just never know. There's a lot of boom or bust in this build for sure, and that kind of a build, whereas this one is more solid. You're guaranteed to get what you get. You're going to be getting every skill cycle the same amount of time. There's no extra chances for rage, and you get a ton of extra damage with the quiver arrows and also the top skill for the archer tree. So that is the build. And again, if you need that build, the link is in the description below to my Discord, where you can find that build and take a peek at it and use it to your benefits. Let's talk about pairings. El Cid can be used as a primary or a secondary. So he is a skill, talent, and archer talent commander, so I would easily use him as a primary commander. And in fact, I would prefer to have El Cid as a primary commander and hopefully fire off this skill before your opponent fires off their skill, so you can start that 1 second delay on the first skill cycle and not the second. However, you can use him as a secondary and be just fine. Now, pairings for El Cid, certainly YSG is a prime example of a pair with El Cid. El Cid YSG, YSG El Cid, although if you do YSG primary, not only will you be reducing the amount of damage you're going to be doing because of the talents in the skill build, but also because you will be instantly targeted as a YSG primary user, and that will be the end of your existence right away. Another pair with El Cid, certainly you can do Edward El Cid, although the synergy is not really there. I don't really like Edward primary on the open field unless Tamiris is behind him, and even then I'm not a huge fan. I would rather have El Cid Tamiris, to be honest. The extra couple percents that you get from Tamiris getting delayed on her skill damage, I would much rather just have the skill damage getting fired off from both of the commanders more often than having the extra percentage, unless it's just a murder ball situation. And then you can be fine doing that. But El Cid, secondary to Edward, is okay, not great. I would also say Tamiris as a secondary, like I just said, to El Cid is really good. You can do Tamiris primary if you want to try and get those extra few skill damage taken reductions or boosts, I should say. The skill damage factor that you add to the target, right? So if you're using Tamiris, you're increasing the damage they take. That's the words I'm looking for. Increasing the skill damage they take. If you use Tamiris primary, you'll have a few more ticks of that because you have the attack tree versus the skill tree. But if you use El Cid primary, you can kind of hide Tamiris behind him, and even though you're not getting those extra few ticks of the skill damage taken, you're firing them more often, and you're less likely to maybe be targeted right off the bat. I already mentioned it earlier. Ramses secondary, I think, is a great pairing with El Cid. He has the additional skill damage that you are talking about when it comes to additional damage factor. And again, El Cid primary can kind of hide Ramses. Ramses is a high priority target because of his defense reduction of 25%, his healing immune effect that he provides. Also, it increases to 30% whenever his expertise as well. And he is very tanky. He has attack bonuses for archers. He also has defense bonuses for archers. That's another attack bonus. Defense bonuses for archers. So multiple attack and defense bonuses for archers. And like I said, you had El Cid with a 20% defense bonus. Here's Ramses with a 40%, it's 10% chance, but 40% defense bonus, attack bonus 40%, and another attack bonus of 40%. I mean, it stacks up so much. It's kind of crazy where El Cid only gets a 20% defense bonus one time, and Ramses has got like 100% stats over here. So that's how good Ramses is. Let's see. Artemisia. You can definitely use Artemisia with El Cid. It's kind of a weird combo where you're disabling other players, but you're actually possibly self-silencing yourself as well. 50% chance to silence your troops for 3 seconds at the same time. So that can mess with your disable rotation a little bit, but it's definitely usable from a damage perspective. You could even use Trajan primary with mixed troops because the amount of stats that you get for archer troops on El Cid is so low. The impact is not that bad if you need to use mixed troops with Trajan primary. Trajan El Cid, it's not a bad pair. It's not great. It's not bad though. Certainly Cyrus, and then definitely Nebu as well. You can use with El Cid. You won't take advantage of the extra additional damage taken increase for additional damage bonuses, but you'll at least get something there, and it's a decent pair. And again, like I said, Nebu as well is also a very good pair with any archer commander. I mean, let's be honest, he basically is one of the best archer commanders in the game. But yeah, that's going to be the pairings for El Cid. I did get El Cid to 60 for a reason, and that's going to kind of transition us into the summary of El Cid on his mastery guide. So when should you use El Cid, in which situations? So early game, I think El Cid is decent, but not great. Reason being, he's squishy. He's very squishy, and he's boom or bust with his second skill as far as how much damage he's putting out. So you're a glass cannon that might have a blown fuse, if that makes any sense. His expertise is hot garbage, and his fourth skill is really his redeeming skill. Now, if you're using it as a rally situation against maybe someone bold / naive enough to use a Richard inside of a flag or something, El Cid could absolutely devastate something, but it's very situational. Any other commander pairing that you're going to be running into is going to have disastrous effects to your El Cid, and you'll be very upset that you put anything into this guy to max him. Now, late game, it's a different story. And the reason I say that, using him as part of a swarm. So having El Cids, plural, on a swarming of a structure in Ark of Osiris, or this could certainly be, for early game too, but you'll start to see this level of play towards the later game. And then even certainly in a murder ball, like in the middle of Ark of Osiris, or even in KBK, the more El Cids you have, the more disabling, the more reduction of damage you're doing. I mean, it's plain numbers. You're disabling not only the normal attacks, but also delaying the skill attack of your target by 1 second. So the more of those you have out there, the exponentially more damage you're reducing by firing off that skill a dozen times, right? So however many El Cids you got out there. So technically, the more El Cids you have, the less damage you're going to take. However, also the more likely it is that you might not necessarily out damage your opponent. So something to think about there, but he has a use. It's mainly for his first skill. His first skill, the disable effect, used on Ark of Osiris buildings, used in the middle to disable, murder balls, firing off Nebu and Guan and blah, 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 all that stuff, okay? So that's very helpful for you endgame. I think he's still one of the weakest legendary commanders in the game from a PvP perspective. He's not completely weak, but he's also not at the tier of, say, again, a Ramses, an Artemisia, a YSG, Nebu, even a Cyrus, I think would outplay El Cid. But in early game, it's not as bad. You don't have those things available to you, so you use what you use. Also, again, I mentioned it earlier as well. The Bastion skill for El Cid tends to be Unyielding. I haven't seen any other Bastion skill from El Cid. Maybe I've seen Poem of El Cid. I'm not 100% on that. But having it maxed will help you in Heroic Anthem because that's a support skill that you want to have maxed. All these skills are really good when you attach them to a really good commander not named El Cid. So, I mean, this on a garrison or a rally is absolutely devastating. This skill on any skill damage commander is absolutely devastating. I mean, just firing off an extra 1,000 skill damage. Why not? No big deal. Stuff like that. So there is value for El Cid, but again, it's limited. It's situational. It's niche. And again, I think that's just kind of a good summary for what else it is. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Again, if you haven't done so already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification. Make sure that you are plugged in. We are daily content grinding all day, every day. And also, obviously, playing the game nonstop all day, every day. So make sure you stop in and throw a like and a subscribe on the channel. And I hope to see you guys next time. Cheers. Have a good one and take care.